we are going to read a book called Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. Now, this book has been made into a movie, so you may have heard of it before. It's really fun, and it's written by a woman. Her name is Judi Barrett. Right here, Judi Barrett. And it's drawn by Ron Barrett. The illustrations are really fun. So I'll try to show you the illustrations as best I can up on the camera. So let's get started. This page is called, right here in the front, the title page. Let me get that for you. There's the title page. Okay. This is the front cover, the back cover. The jacket is here on the outside. You know all that, don't you? If not, we'll review that more often. Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. So I'm going to start reading. Here we go. We were all sitting around the big kitchen table. It was Saturday morning, pancake morning. Mom was squeezing oranges for juice. Henry and I were betting on how many pancakes we could all eat. And Grandpa was doing the flipping. Seconds later, something flew through the air and headed straight toward the kitchen ceiling. Wonder what it was. Let's see. Ooh, it looks like a pancake. It landed right on Henry. Sure did. After we realized that the flying object was only a pancake, we all laughed. Even Grandpa. Breakfast continued quite uneventfully. All the other pancakes landed in the pan, and all of them were eaten, even the one that had landed on Henry. Breakfast time. Who had pancakes for breakfast today? That sounds good. Always sounds good. That night, touched off by the pancake incident at breakfast, Grandpa told us the best tall tale bedtime story he'd ever told. Here we go. Across an ocean, over lots of huge bumpy mountains, across 3 hot deserts and 1 smaller ocean, there lay the tiny town of Chew and Swallow. Here you go, get a close-up of that. It's a great illustration. He's telling the story, big old boat going across, and there it is, the town of Chew and Swallow over here on the other side. Very neat. In most ways, it was very much like any other tiny town. It had a main street lined with stores, houses with trees, and gardens all around them. A schoolhouse, about 300 people, and some assorted cats and dogs. That town doesn't look too much like where I live, but I have been in a town like that. If you live in a town like that, it's pretty cool. But there were no food stores in the town of Chew and Swallow. They didn't need any. The sky supplied all the food they could possibly want. The only thing that was really different about Chew and Swallow was its weather. It came 3 times a day. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Everything that everyone ate came from the sky. Now that is different. Look at that dog. Wonder what he's looking for. Whatever the weather served, that was what they ate. It never rained rain, and it never snowed snow, and it never blew just wind. It rained things like soup and juice. It snowed mashed potatoes and green peas, and sometimes the wind blew in storms of hamburgers. Look at that. That sounds yummy. The people could watch the weather report on television in the morning, and they would even hear a prediction for the next day's food. How about that? Look up there in the closet, he's got everything ready to collect the food. When the townspeople went outside, they carried their plates, cups, glasses, forks, spoons, knives, and napkins with them. That way they would always be prepared for any kind of weather. If there were leftovers, and there usually were, the people took them home and put them in the refrigerator in case they got hungry between meals. Here's some of the pictures. There's a couple people having some food at a baseball game, and then a lady grabbing some food out of her taxi window. This other lady's grabbing some drumsticks on the go, and another gentleman here, he's drinking soup from an umbrella. Look at that dog having a little bit of the leftovers. The many varied. By the time they woke up in the morning, breakfast was coming down. After a brief shower of orange juice, low clouds of sunny-side-up eggs moved in to follow by pieces of toast. Peanut butter and jelly sprinkled down for the toast, and most of the time it rained milk afterwards. Look at that. All those poor little animals trying to get the food off the tree. For lunch one day, frankfurters, already in their rolls, blew in from the northwest at about 5 miles an hour. And there were muster clouds nearby. Then the wind shifted to the east and brought in baked beans. A drizzle of soda finished off their meal. This is Ralph's rooftop restaurant. That looks a little bit crazy. I'm not sure I'd want to eat that way. Dinner one night consisted of lamb chops, becoming heavy at times, with occasional ketchup. Periods of peas and baked potatoes were followed by gradual clearing, with a wonderful jello setting in the west. So instead of the sunset, it looks like they have a jello set. I don't know how you could get that jello. You'd have to really run over there before it disappeared over the horizon. The sanitation department of Chew and Swallow had a rather unusual job for a sanitation department. Sanitation departments take out the trash. So if you've ever seen the trash person, they work for the sanitation department. They had to remove the food that fell on the houses and the sidewalks and lawns. The workers cleaned things up after every meal and fed all the dogs and cats. Then, they emptied some of it into the surrounding oceans for the fish and turtles and whales to eat. The rest of the food was put back into the earth so that the soil would be richer for people's flower gardens. That's a pretty cool trash truck. The doggies are looking pretty happy about that meat. Life for the townspeople was delicious until the weather took a turn for the worst. Uh-oh. That's not good. Spaghetti ties up town. Look at that. It's messing up the traffic. What a mess to clean up for the sanitation department. One day there was nothing but Gorgonzola cheese all day long, which is extremely stinky if you've never heard of Gorgonzola cheese. Look at, they have clips on their noses so they don't have to smell it. The next day, there was only broccoli, and all of it was overcooked and soggy. Who just does not? I don't like soggy broccoli. Not as fun as nice, delicious, al dente broccoli. And the next day, there were Brussels sprouts and peanut butter with mayonnaise. Aw, the poor little girl's birthday party. She's not very happy with that. Another day, there was pea soup fog. No one could see where they were going, and no one could see the rest of their meal that got stuck in the fog. Oh, look at that guy. You can't even see his food. And now, the food was getting larger and larger, and so were the portions. The people were getting frightened. Violent storms blew up frequently. Awful things were happening. One Tuesday there was a hurricane of bread and rolls all day long, and into the night there were soft rolls and hard rolls, and some with seeds and some without. There was white bread and rye bread and whole wheat toast. Most of it was larger than they'd ever seen bread and rolls before. It was a terrible day. Everyone had to stay indoors. Roofs were damaged, and the sanitation department was beside itself. The mess took the workers 4 days to clean up, and the sea was full of floating rolls. Wow. To help out, the people piled up as much bread as they could in their backyards. The birds picked at it a bit, but it stayed there and just got staler and staler. That's a lot of bird bread. Then there was a storm of pancakes one morning and a downpour of maple syrup that nearly flooded the town. A huge pancake covered the school. No one could get it off because of its weight, so they had to close the school. Some of you may have schools closed right now. It can definitely make things a little more stressful. Lunch one day brought 15-inch drifts of cream, cheese, and jelly sandwiches. Everyone ate themselves sick, and the day ended with a stomach ache. Yeah, that's a lot of cream cheese and jelly. Those poor kids. They don't look like they're feeling very good. Then there was an awful salt and pepper wind accompanied by an even worse tomato tornado. People were sneezing themselves silly and running in to avoid the tomatoes. The town was a mess. There were seeds and pulp everywhere. That sounds like a disaster. Look at that. All these people caught up in this tornado. Wow. It was affecting everyone. The sanitation department gave up. The job was too big. Everyone feared for their lives. They couldn't go outside most of the time. Many houses have been badly damaged by giant meatballs. Stores were boarded up, and there was no more school for the children. So the decision was made to abandon the town of Chew and Swallow. It was a matter of survival. What? There's some big old donuts, and look at those meatballs and the bacon. Wowzers. Oh, look at that guy. Everybody's a little bit scared, it looks like. So, the people glued together giant pieces of stale bread, sandwich style, with peanut butter, and then they took the absolute necessities with them, and they sailed on their rafts for a new land. They had to keep away from all that food. They had to be safe. The only way to be safe was to get out of the weather. After being afloat for a week, they finally reached a small coastal town, which welcomed them. The bread had held up surprisingly well enough for them to build temporary houses to live in. The children began to go to school again, and the adults all tried to find places for themselves in the new land. The biggest change they had to make was getting used to buying food at a supermarket. They found it odd that food was kept on shelves and packaged in bottles and boxes and cans. Meat that had to be cooked was kept in large refrigerators. Nothing came down from the sky except for rain and snow. The clouds were above their heads, and they were not made of fried eggs. No one ever got hit by a hamburger again. And nobody dared to go back to Chew and Swallow to find out what had happened to it. They were all too afraid. Henry and I were awake until the very end of Grandpa's story. I still remember his kiss. Good night. So here we go. They all arrived. Look at these temporary houses they built. All made out of giant slices of bread. They felt safe again. It's all over. That's so cool. And they were able to live their lives again. And then the story was done. The next morning, we woke up to see snow falling outside our window. Bet that felt good. What a good way to wake up. We ran downstairs for breakfast and ate it a little bit faster than usual so we could go sledding with Grandpa. It's funny, but even as we were sliding down the hill, we thought we saw a giant pat of butter on top. And we could almost smell mashed potatoes. So look in this picture. A lot of times people put a big old pat of butter on top of their mashed potatoes before they eat it. And that's exactly what it looked like. So that's the end of our story. There's a big old bowl of mashed potatoes. This story is about rain that looks like food coming down from the sky, or storms of food. That doesn't happen in real life. But we do have storms, and we do have things that come into our lives that we are not in control of, things that are way out of our control. And that could cause us a lot of stress. So that's why it's important to know how to deal with stress.